So here to react about what they could accomplish right after the NATO meeting is Senator Ted Cruz. Senator Cruz, what's at stake? And do you agree with the president in pushing for this meeting?
Well, listen, we've seen Russia over the last decade get more and more aggressive, more and more hostile to the United States. Under Barack Obama, we saw a policy of weakness and appeasement. I think that only encouraged Putin. I'm grateful that under the Trump administration, we have an administration again that will stand up and be strong, that will stand up for America's friends and stand up to our enemies. So I'm hopeful in this summit that the president comes in from a position of strength. That's the right way to deal with Putin, and that's the right way to deal with Russia.
And he's going to, on the agenda is going to be the occupation of the Ukraine, the taking of Crimea. Yeah. And we understand, according to Bolton, Ambassador Bolton, he's going to bring up Russian meddling in the election. So don't you believe that they need to be called out on that directly?
Oh, absolutely. And if you look at Russia, Russia is trying to expand their influence. You know, Putin's been very candid. He said a number of years ago that he thought the greatest geopolitical tragedy of the 20th century was the demise of the Soviet Union. And I think what Putin is trying to do is recreate the old Soviet Union. That's why he invaded Georgia. That's why he invaded Ukraine. And I think the best check for that is a strong and assertive president, a strong and assertive United States. I think we have a dramatic improvement from the weakness we had under President Obama.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the Supreme Court. Go ahead, Inslee.
Well, Justice Kennedy sent a letter over to the White House yesterday announcing that he was going to step down and retire. That will happen on July 31st. What's your reaction to this, and what do you think this means for the Supreme Court going forward?
Well, this is truly historic. This could well prove to be the most significant thing President Trump does in his entire time in office. This could prove to be the most significant thing the Republican Senate does. And Justice Kennedy, for 31 years, has been the pivotal swing vote on virtually every 5-4 decision, every close case. So if you care about the Constitution and Bill of Rights, if you care about free speech or religious liberty, if you care about the Second Amendment, if you care about the Fourth Amendment or the 10th Amendment, all of our rights as Americans, they come through the crossroads of the courts. And this is an opportunity for President Trump to nominate a strong constitutionalist, which could be his single greatest legacy 20, 30, 40 years from now.
I know you said yesterday that you thought your colleague from the great state of Utah, Mike Lee, would make a great Supreme Court justice. Meanwhile, another colleague, Chuck Schumer, says, you know what? They should put this off until after the election so that the people have spoken, because that's what we've done in the past. But that's not exactly accurate, is it?
Look, of course Schumer's saying that the Democrats are lighting their hair on fire. They are apoplectic. You know, this was a major issue in the 2016 election. I believe if Justice Scalia had not passed away when he did, that there's a very good possibility Hillary Clinton would be president of the United States right now. This was a major issue. The American people decided. It's a major reason we have President Trump and we have a Republican majority in the Senate, because the American people want justices who will defend the Constitution, defend the Bill of Rights. You know, the Democrats want judicial activists. They want liberal extremists who will force their partisan agenda on the country. Most of us don't want to be governed by 5 unelected lawyers in Washington. And, you know, you mentioned Mike Lee. I think hands down the very best choice President Trump could make would be Senator Mike Lee as a justice that, you know, with no gambling, no rolling the dice. You know, Republican presidents have gotten this wrong over and over and over again. Let's not take a chance. Let me mention also 2 other names that I think the president would be well advised to consider. Number 1, U.S. Solicitor General Noel Francisco. He just argued and won the travel ban case in front of the Supreme Court, would make a phenomenal justice. And number 2, Fifth Circuit Appellate Judge Jim Ho. Came as an immigrant when he was 1 from Taiwan, was a clerk for Justice Clarence Thomas, would be the first Asian American justice on the court. All 3 of them, Mike Lee, Noel Francisco, Jim Ho, would make extraordinary justices.
Nobody knows more about the need to get something done on immigration. Thank you for that. About immigration, being a Texas senator, than you. Now we understand the House failed miserably, embarrassingly, 121 to 301 in their last attempt to get something to you guys in the Senate. So being that the military bases are now asked to accommodate 12,000 migrant families, the Coast Guard is now losing money because it's going towards the border. Where is the solution when it comes to immigration? Where's the urgency when it comes to getting an answer here? And why do we continue to have to lean on the defense budget?
Well, I'm glad the House voted down that immigration bill. It would have granted amnesty for millions of people here illegally. That would have been a catastrophic mistake.
Dreamers.
I think there are two things. It was much broader than Dreamers. I mean, it was a massive amnesty plan.
Is that why it failed? People going into the midterms, they didn't want that rubber stamp on their name?
Look, I can tell you, I told House leadership the one thing they could do that would hand Democrats control of Congress is pass a massive amnesty plan that granted citizenship to millions of people here illegally. I think a lot of House members agreed with that assessment. We saw it voted down. But there are two things we can and should do this year on immigration. Number one, we need to build a wall, and we need to take up a reconciliation bill. That's what we did last year to pass the tax cut. That can't be filibustered, and use reconciliation to build a wall, to fund it. We only need 50 votes, so the Democrats will scream and yell, but they can't stop it. And we could get that done this year. And then number two, look, all of us have been horrified at the images we've seen of families being separated, of kids taken from their parents. Everyone can agree children belong with their moms and dads. I introduced legislation to keep families together, but at the same time to enforce immigration law. Democrats want to use this crisis, exploit the crisis really, to try to force releasing illegal aliens who have crossed in illegally. That's the wrong approach. Catch and release is the wrong approach. But the legislation I introduced said let's keep kids with their parents, let's detain everyone together as a family, and then expedite the process. And either if they meet the standard for asylum granted, or if not, send them home and send them home quickly.
Hey, Senator, before you go, best video of the last week or so, you versus Jimmy Kimmel. You won playing basketball. Have you heard from any NBA coaches yet? Have you been drafted by any teams?
Well, you know, Grayson Allen went early in the pick, and a lot of folks say that poor young man looks like me, so I'll live vicariously through him. I promise you, the game was horrific. It was not great basketball, but I was very, very glad that Jimmy Kimmel went home with a loss and we went home with a win.
And the people of Texas have another reason to smile. Senator Ted Cruz, thanks so much.
Thank you.